I guess we will start off just by kind of getting you to explain a little bit about the ScienceUp First campaign in your words. How would you describe it?
It's a collective of scientists, of clinicians, of science communicators, of people who are just passionate about fighting misinformation, working together on a social media campaign to push back against the spread of misinformation. I think that really kind of captures it. We want this to be a movement, really. We want it to be more than just people sharing. We really want to create a spirit, a movement that's going to live on beyond the pandemic. Yeah. So we also wanted to make it very easy for anyone to become part of the team. So if you're a grade 6 student and you love science, you can become part of the team. You know, if you're a genomic researcher and you're sequencing the genome of the woolly mammoth, you can become part of the team. So we wanted to make it really easy to participate. So all you need to do is follow on your favorite social media platform, whether that's Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, and spread the content. Yeah. The other thing that we're doing is we are inviting people to become a little bit more involved, really to participate in it a little bit more. So you can also become part of you can volunteer to help vet the material. And so we have like a stable of experts. I think it's like 1,600 over,
Wow.
So wow. I just asked 600 because people who are volunteering from all across Canada. And these are experts that help us vet the content, because of course the goal is to have really credible sources out there. And it's been a really big success over the last, I think in the first 3 weeks, I just got the metrics. I should have looked at them right now. I would have had update for you. But in the first 3 weeks, it was something like 60 million interactions and thousands of new users sharing the content. And that's what we really want, right? Because we want it to be this movement. So we want new people to come in and be sharing the content. So that's great news. We really haven't even populated the team yet with staff. So we're hopeful that it's going to even increase in the future.
Wow, no, that's so cool. So just so I understand a bit better, is it that people you vet the information that's already out there, or is it that you have people kind of coming up with content and then it's being vetted by these professionals, or how does it work exactly?
All the above.
Oh, wow. Okay. Everything.
So let me back up a little bit. So, because this is actually something that we've talked about, and we're still trying to get what we're not 100% sure what the balance we want is, but so we do 3 things. The first thing that we're doing is we are going to create our own content. We have been creating our own content, right? So the reason I pause there is because, that can be, we want to do it really well, and we want to make sure it's evidence-based. Because as you probably know, the research tells us that one of the most important things to fighting misinformation is to make sure whatever content you make is shareable, on social media. Easily, that people can engage with it easily. And the people that spread misinformation are actually very good at this, right? They get these memes and these, so we want to make sure that the content that we are creating is shareable, and that takes time. So we have been doing that, but we hope in the very near future we're going to have more people that are actually full-time engaged in this, creating the content. So we want to create stuff for TikTok, for Instagram, for Facebook, Twitter, obviously, all of those platforms. Secondly, we are identifying existing content that we think is great and we want to share, because we want this, as I said, we want this to be a community. So that's where the experts come in. They vet both, but we want the experts to also look at that existing content and tell us if they think it's accurate, because we want to make sure that if people come to ScienceUp First, they can feel comfortable sharing it. Let me give you an example. Right now, there's a rumor that the vaccine, a myth, a myth. I'm not even going to call it a rumor. It's just a myth.
Okay.
The vaccine causes infertility. Have you heard this? Or creates infertility problems?
No.
Completely wrong, right? Completely wrong. No evidence to support that at all. In fact, it's not even scientifically plausible, right? There's no idea, no biological action that could really lead to that conclusion. So we want to very quickly identify content that counters that and get it out there on our channels. So we creating content, finding good content, and then the last thing that we want to do is we want to have this content, you know, some good stuff available on the website. So let's say you're a teacher, or you're just interested in a topic and you want to be part of the answer. You can go to our website and find content that you can share. You know, stuff that's been formatted for, you know, Instagram. You know, so it's a square or something that's been formatted for Facebook. So we're gonna have that there, and we're still building that part up. So that gives you a little bit of a sense of what's going on. And also on that page, also on our website, we want to have links to credible websites. So the World Health Organization, CDC, Public Health Agency of Canada, City of London has got a great one. You know, that kind of thing that people can go to. So it's also going to be a resource that people can. So we want it to be a little bit of a one-stop shop for all your misinformation needs.
Exactly, I like that a lot, and it's actually funny and pretty good that you touched on COVID-19. I know that you want it to be a global movement, such that it's not just tackling COVID-19 issues, but because that's what we're currently facing. What do you think are some common misconceptions that you have seen specifically about COVID-19 and now about the COVID-19 vaccine? I'm sure you have stories of examples. Which one?
So many. Yeah. Buckle up. So I'll just use some example. You know, there's misinformation about everything, right? So there's misinformation about the source. A very good example of that is the 5G myth. Have you heard this? The idea that 5G. That's actually a really good example because that started early days, about a year ago, right? It started, and no one took it seriously. And it kind of took off, and it started with celebrities like Woody Harrelson and the musician MIA. I don't know if you know her. Yeah, she's great too, which is great. Not anymore. So they are like in the epicenter, and they've kind of spread this misinformation, and we didn't take it seriously, but it's lived on and it's had a real impact. You know, there's misinformation about the idea that it's a bioweapon. There's been all this misinformation about cures and treatments. In fact, that's one of the biggest categories of misinformation at the cures and treatments. There's been misinformation about the role of the government, you know, these conspiracy theories associated with it. And now we're into the vaccines, and there has been so much misinformation about the speed of the development, about the regulatory process, about the harms. So we've heard misinformation, for example, about the idea that the vaccine will change your DNA. You know, no evidence to support that at all, but it's had impact. And the fertility one is another good example. Misinformation that it causes infertility. So there's really been misinformation from the beginning about every aspect of the pandemic, right up until the delivery of the vaccines. And the other interesting thing is there's been a lot of studies that have shown that it has real harm, right? It has real harm. For example, there's a study that came from the UK that found that 6%, 6.2% in the UK and 6.4% in the United States of the hesitancy around vaccines is caused by misinformation. That's huge. Right? It has a real impact.
Yeah. And I think it's just as a side note, one of the interesting things that I noticed was I've read that there's a difference between the anti-vaxxers, those that are just staunchly against getting the vaccine versus those that are vaccine hesitant. So there's a lot of, and I think a lot of what I feel like the campaign, the ScienceUp First campaign would be, it seems the majority of the target audience would be those people in the vaccine hesitant group, because they're the ones that are just kind of in the middle. They don't really know either because, okay, they're not open, they don't have access to the information, or because they're scared. So it's easier that the anti-vaccine information is able to like get in their minds. But I just want to kind of touch on the fact that, do you think it's the scientific community's responsibility or the health community, or do you think it's just all of our responsibilities to tackle misinformation? Because I know on your team you have a bunch of different, you have science teachers and things like that. So who would you say should be kind of responsible?
Yeah, it's a great question, but also back to your point about the vaccination hesitant versus the hardcore deniers. You're absolutely right. And I think that's often overlooked, right? They treat everyone as if they're a hardcore anti-vaxxer, and that's not the case. Some people, they want to do what's best for them and for their family and for their community, and they're trying to find answers. Call it the movable middle, right? And what we want is we want to make sure that the hardcore deniers are not impacting that movable middle. We want to be a voice that's pulling them towards the evidence-based approach. So that's a really important point. And we shouldn't really waste our resources on those hardcore deniers. So whose responsibility is it? I actually think, and I wrote I was the lead author on a piece for the Royal Society of Canada that came out in October. And in that, we argue that it's part of being an academic, part of being a clinician. You do have a responsibility to respond to misinformation when you see it, especially if it's about your area or about your research. You should speak up. So you have that obligation to do that. Not every scientist is going to want to do it, but those that do want to do it, we need to support them. So the institutions need to support them. The governments need to support them. They need to have the training, and they need to feel like they can do this safely, right? So, and they're going to be recognized for doing it. And by that, I mean within their institutions. So, yeah, I think there is an obligation to get out there and fight misinformation. And as I said, not every scientist, not every clinician is going to want to do it. But those that do, we need to support them. We need to encourage it because we need more of it. And the good news is, we are seeing more of it. You're seeing more and more clinicians get on social media, get on the news. That's fantastic, and it is a wonderful community. That's the other thing we want ScienceUp First to be. We want people to recognize that this is, it's a great community, and it's fun. There are these passionate, smart people involved, and it's something that you can really get behind.
Yeah, I like that. And in terms of the general public, because a lot of the information, as you said, is also geared towards, teachers and, students at kindergarten age and things like that. So how much do you think it's their responsibility as well to kind of not look for this information, but be a healthy feeding ground, I guess, so to speak? How because it's great to put the information out there, but if you're kind of meeting resistance, if it's that the market isn't fertile enough for people to receive this information, then how much do you feel like it's our responsibility as a community as well, just to try and fight misinformation, not just because of, okay, we have this pandemic, but for the future generations, making sure that when we read information, it's not just that we're reading it for the sake of reading it, but we are actually critically assessing everything we're reading. How much do you think that's important as well?
Yeah, another really good question, and I think that one's tougher, because and there's been research done on this. Most Canadians, they want to be accurate, right? They don't have a nefarious agenda to spread misinformation. Most people want to be accurate. So I think what we need to do as a society is create the conditions and provide the tools that allow Canadians to spread good information and to have the critical thinking skills necessary in order to recognize misinformation. So that means we have to teach it in our schools, right? I think we should start in kindergarten, kindergarten, elementary school onward. So I think we need to do that. The other thing that we should consider is working with social media platforms to do our best to give people the opportunity not to spread misinformation. There's really interesting research. One of the colleagues with me on our COVID grant, Gordon Pennycook, he's an experimental psychologist, and he has found if you can just nudge people to pause, they're less likely to spread misinformation, right? So you just get them to pause and to think about, maybe nudge them to read the title of the article and consider whether this is accurate or not. And if you that little simple nudge does have an impact. People are less likely to spread misinformation. So that's fantastic news, right? Very scalable, simple intervention that we can do. So we want to empower people to be able to be good critical thinkers. We want to give them opportunities to apply those tools. And then I also think we want to think about what is the role of, you're talking kind of about the public, but what's the role of our society? So our governments, our regulatory bodies. I have to let my cat out here.
Okay, yes. Go ahead.
Lord Byron once out. Okay.
Oh, nice name.
He's a very sophisticated cat. What is the role of regulators, of politicians, and I think they all need to be more active, and I think the other good news story is, I think as a result of the pandemic, we're seeing that activity. We're seeing more and more regulatory bodies taking this very, very seriously. So, you want to see it from the health regulators, you want to see it from the entities like Health Canada, you want to see it from the truth in advertising regulators. All of those regulatory bodies have a role to play. And we also want to see it from our political leaders. And again, you're starting to see this more and more, which is a good thing.
Yeah. And just kind of touching on that, so what do you think about initiatives such as the science literacy courses? Because I know the U of A has one, like a free course that they have organized. I think you actually you teach a section in that course. So I know, as much as we think it's it is a responsibility of the government and all these different bodies, I think academic institutions as well do have a role to play. Because I remember when the pandemic first happened, there was a lot of open courses, a lot of free courses made available. So what do you think of initiatives such as think science literacy courses. How do you feel about those?
Love them. Easy answer. So I think I'm glad you brought it up, because I do think we need to think of ways that we can inject critical thinking throughout the education process. I already said I think we should teach it in kindergarten, and that may seem like I'm being a little bit facetious or just. I mean it. I mean it. Yeah. In Scandinavia, they are in some of the Nordic countries. They are doing this. They are teaching kids that early about critical thinking. But we also need to do it at the other end. We need to be able to give every citizen the opportunity to get a sense of critical thinking skills. And as you probably know, it's some people hear that and they're scared, they're intimidated or scared away from it, thinking, oh, they're going to be learning about stats and I don't want to. No, it's very straightforward, and it's just skills that we can all apply. There was an interesting study in Uganda that I often refer to, and they were teaching critical thinking skills to 11-year-olds, and they learned these skills and they were able to apply them, right? And they retained them. So that's good news, right? We know that these kinds of classes can have an impact. So I love that's been made available, but I also think we need to consider injecting it through all the curriculum in university. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And just for the main point that this is a social media campaign, it's an online campaign, how would you say social media what is its contribution to misinformation in the modern world today? Because sometimes the platform in which you choose to tackle the issue might also be very important. So why did you make this such a social media heavy campaign? It's available on all the major social medias. Why was that something that was important
for this campaign?
Yeah, another great question. So first, I think it's important to recognize that misinformation comes from all over, right? It's not just on social media. It does come from all over. In addition to that, there are communities that perhaps don't access social media as much, and we still need to address misinformation with those communities. For example, there may be some northern communities that aren't online as much. And we have to think of creative ways that we can co-create solutions for those communities. But having said that, this is largely a social media phenomenon. When we're talking about what's happening right now with COVID, it is social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, that has, WhatsApp, TikTok, that has created this problem. Yeah. And so we thought we need to get to where the problem is, and we need to be, where people are and where the problem is occurring. So that's one of the reasons that we focused on social media. And there has been a body of evidence that has looked at the role that social media plays from a bunch of different directions. There's a study from McGill came out over the summer that found that people that get their information from social media more likely to be misinformed, more likely to believe misinformation. There's been a lot of studies that have suggested that this is, where the misinformation is occurring. So it seemed very, very logical for us to focus on social media. Not the only place. More needs to be done. Misinformation is one of those complex social problems that is going to require us coming at it from a variety of directions. So this project is it's aimed at the social media part of the puzzle.
Okay. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And just kind of our last two questions is, what are some strategies that you personally would recommend for identifying misinformation, and just to, some of the advice you would give for being able to critically assess the information we're reading online? I know when I ask, I don't mean like something comprehensive.
No. I can give you. For sure, I get it.
Yeah, okay.
Some of the things I always tell people is, ask yourself when you see something on social media. First of all, always double check. You see something and you are curious if it's real. Check on some other websites, some more reputable, well-known websites, to see if whatever's stated there has been stated elsewhere. If it is big news, right? If it's about a cure or a harm, I promise you'll know. Right? It's gonna be, it's amazing to me that people think that this website on Facebook has access to secret knowledge, right? So that's another thing. So double check. The second thing is, ask yourself, what kind of evidence is being used? Is this just an anecdote? Is it just a testimonial? Is it based on a conspiracy theory? Is it based on just an animal study? Is it just one study? Always remember, you want to turn to the body of evidence, especially on something as complex as the pandemic. Yeah. So, double check, ask yourself what kind of evidence is being used. Make sure it's not just a testimonial. Third, what's in it for the person? Are they selling a product? If so, be skeptical. Are they selling a brand? Sometimes they're just wellness influencers trying to sell a brand. Gwyneth Paltrow, Tom Brady. Be skeptical. Be skeptical. Are they trying to sell an ideology? Sometimes that's part of it, right? This misinformation fits within a broader ideological framework. Be skeptical. And then also consider the kind of language that's being used. Are they using scare tactics and hyperbole in order to push, this is a cure, this is a dangerous, disaster, ask yourself those kinds of really simple questions, and it can take you a long way.
Awesome. And I guess the last question, which is kind of similar to the question I asked before, is what advice would you give specifically for students? Because this is for, there are a lot of students right now that, are working, studying at home, but then they also have time to all this wealth of information on the social medias. We have a lot of time to just randomly, just see that article just pop up on your Facebook, or just, there's a lot of all these advert links on Instagram that just pop up these days now. So what would be your advice specifically for students in terms of tackling misinformation or in terms of, I don't want to suggest attacking misinformation, but thinking critically?
So first of all, I invite them all to become part of ScienceUp First. So
Nice.
first of all, become part of the team. Secondly, you raised a really, I think, something that's worth highlighting. I think you're right. Students are, I've got kids that are students. They are bombarded with information all the time, right? And so this is going to sound like an old man bit of advice, but it's science-based, and you're probably going to guess what I'm going to say. Take a break. Take a break from your phone. Take a break from screens. And again, there's evidence to back this up. From looking at it from a bunch of different directions, right? Like I referred to that work by Gordon Pennycook about just relaxing and pausing. That really does matter, right? If you can just get people to step away from the noise a little bit, it's good for your mental health, but it's also good for your critical thinking skills, right? You're better to assess the content if you do that. So I know it's so hard to do this, but really think about taking a break from the noise. And I would also emphasize that recognize all those cognitive biases that might be having an impact on how you see the world. So the negativity bias, the confirmation bias. Always remain curious, always remain critical. Critical of the content that you see, and as become part of the solution.
Well, thank you so much. That is the end of the interview.
Oh, that makes it easy.
Yeah, I was just about to say thank you. No, so thank you very much. I will work on putting it together and scribing it and all things, and I will probably CC you and Brianna. I'll probably CC Brianna first, and then we'll work on it together, and then we can send it to you.
What are you studying right now?
I'm in rehab science.
Excellent.
So yeah, doing my master's in rehab science.
And what are you doing your master's on in particular?
In obesity. So I'm looking at, I'm with Dr. Caulfield. So I'm looking at evaluating an online platform. So I'm very much interested in science communication. So OC Connect, Obesity Canada, they have a platform for just individuals living with obesity, with lived experiences with obesity.
Fantastic.
So it's a platform, they just started it last year, so I'm super excited. I'm going to work with them with evaluating that platform, seeing how effective it is in terms of, the different criteria that they need to, creating a supportive environment, encouraging people to be advocates, and tackling some misinformation, not really, but something, you kind of have to, and just kind of providing a platform for educational purposes. So I'm very much excited about the project and seeing how it goes. So.
Oh, that's fantastic. I used to do some work with Obesity Canada. Did you know that?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah, I used to do more work.
I
used to do more work in the obesity space. I did quite a bit, and I've done a little bit around stigma issues and weight bias.
Weight bias,
So also just on the misinformation about weight loss. I've done a lot on that, particularly in the context of pop culture and how weight loss is portrayed. So anyway, that's a conversation for another time. Well, good luck with it. It's such important work.
Thank you so much. All right, you have a great evening.
Yeah, you too. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.